Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, responding to a question from a listener, we talk about managing your managers. Jay Goltz offers a 4-step plan that starts with making sure you've hired the right manager. Anytime you ever hear anyone complaining about their employees, Jay tells us, that's a bad manager. Laura Zander talks about coming to the realization that her staff is not where she thought it was, and how that's playing into her recent anxiety attacks. So now I've got anxiety about my anxiety, she tells us. Plus, Dana's getting married. And I want to know how you can tell if you have a real business. I'm just asking for a friend, of course. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations will, if nothing else, let owners know they are not alone in facing these challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which you can subscribe to at 21hats.com, and where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes. This week's lineup features Jay Goltz, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, Artist Frame Service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. Dana White, who is CEO of Paralee Boyd, a chain of hair salons based in Detroit. And Laura Zander, who is CEO of Jimmy Bean's Wool, a digital version of a neighborhood yarn shop that is based in Reno, Nevada, and also owns a wholesale supplier, Madeline Tosh, in Fort Worth, Texas. The episode is titled, How Do I Manage My Managers? Welcome, Jay, Dana, and Laura, to our first podcast taping of 2021, a year that's already off to a rousing start. Let's start by catching up a little bit since we did take a few weeks off. Dana, anything new with you?
Yes.
Tell us.
After 4.5 amazing years with my boyfriend on December 24th at 11:50 something at night, he got down on one knee and asked me if I would do the honor of being his wife. And I proudly said yes. And I am officially engaged.
Yay.
Nice.
Oh, congratulations. Welcome to the dark side.
Right.
Yeah. And we've all met him and we all like him.
Yes, I'm so excited. You know, I've never been one of those girls who dreamt of her wedding and, like a family member asked me like within hours of being engaged, so what are your colors? I have no idea. And then, when are you getting married? I'll get back to you. We are going to have a small ceremony, probably of like 30, 35 people. Then we're going to have a brunch for those people after. And then later on that night, we'll have a huge, big reception of which all three of you are completely and totally expected invited. Like I expect. Absolutely.
On Zoom? Is it going to all be on Zoom?
No, but it'll be in like 2022.
Oh. All right.
I'm not coming until you tell me the colors, though. I want to make sure I dress right.
Dana, I am curious. Are you concerned about marriage having any impact on your business?
My marriage?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I think me being married.
Well, Jay's laughing. Why are you laughing, Jay?
I'm just laughing about all the people who are married that have been in business for a long time that are thinking about whether their spouse has any effect on their business whatsoever. It kind of makes me laugh.
I mean, but he and I have been together. Like,
yeah.
No, Yes, that was a personal laughing at myself, not laughing at you. That was a personal laughing.
He and I have been together. Like he met me, and on our first date, he saw my office, right, and my paint calendar and it was full. Like he knows that Paralee Boyd is extremely, extremely important, and I don't think he'd want me to be less Paralee Boyd now that I'm married. That would be weird to me. Like I don't even know. Oof, that's scary to me. I've never been that because I know there's women who become less ambitious once they, get married. And I was never doing any of this to get married. So I don't see myself changing. I think my customers, I think my numbers might go up.
How so? Why do you say that?
I mean, my business operates in the Midwestern town. I remember opening and getting the questions, girl, who's your husband? Because everybody assumed I was married and that I had someone helping me do this. And the looks on their faces when I would say, nope, you got a boyfriend? Nope. Well, who told you to do this? I mean, those are questions that I've gotten. And so marriage checks one of the societal boxes of this community. And it's important to some women here that you are married.
You think that'll make people more likely to come into your shop?
I don't know if it'll make people more likely to come into my shop as it will make me an owner that they can relate to. She's relatable, and where I'm at, being, the age that I am and not being married, that's whoa, right? It's not New York where I live, where it doesn't matter. In Detroit, it matters, especially if you're Black. So, yeah. And then, you got to go to the right church. You got to have the right job. You had to go to the right high school and go to the right college, which is local. A lot of times that's Michigan State or U of M or out of state.
God, that is exhausting. That sounds absolutely exhausting.
It is extremely exhausting. But I just now will check one of the boxes. Sadly, it matters. So,
yeah.
Wow.
Or not, sadly, whatever.
It is what it is.
No, yeah. I mean, it's not like you're. Yeah, it is what it is. It's not like you're doing it to check the box,
okay.
Right?
It's okay.
Yeah, gosh, I could care.
All right, let's keep going. Laura, how are you doing? Were you able to take a break over the holidays?
Yeah, I did take some breaks over the holidays. I've actually been home in Reno for 3 weeks now. So this is the longest stretch that I've been home since, I think, June.
Wow.
And I actually don't have plans to go back to Texas for at least another week or two. So, yeah, so I've been taking breaks, but I've really struggled. I mean, God, my anxiety has just been through the roof.
Why is that?
I don't know. And that's what's killing me and driving me nuts is, as soon as I got back from Texas, so the week before Christmas, I'm having trouble breathing. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. And every time I come back, I've got really severe allergies. So I always have this period of a couple of days where I'm just like, oh my God, I've got the Rona, I've got it. I must have it, and then I've infected everybody and, the guilt, all that, it's not worrying about myself as much. And I mean that sincerely as the guilt of what if Doug gets it? What if blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so then I go into this spiral of I'm having trouble breathing and I'm tired and exhausted. So is it allergies? Is it just genuine exhaustion because I've been working my butt off and traveling nonstop? Or am I sick and do I have the Rona? And so then I worry that I'm sick, which makes me more exhausted, which makes me not be able to breathe, which heightens the anxiety. So now I've got anxiety about my anxiety, and it's this like crazy vicious cycle. So I finally had to sit down and what sucks and what is so confusing is that intellectually, like consciously, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing stressing me out, right?
All right. Can you hear from the doctor now? Because I know what you speak of.
Well,
you're going through, you've been on business adrenaline for the last, like most of us, dealing with multiple issues all year long. All of a sudden, the merry-go-round has stopped for a minute and your adrenaline's gone down. And now all of a sudden, you've got time to think about stuff. Like when you're getting shot at in the foxhole, you're not you're just thinking about shooting
survival.
Back, not in survival. All of a sudden, the shooting stopped for a minute. And now you're thinking about, oh, I wonder what's going on at home. And so you've got a little battle fatigue. It's been a long year with all kinds of stuff going on, and it's been a long simmer. And so we're all readjusting now.
Yeah, that's exactly. And that's like, I finally, the other day, I'm like, okay, I'm going to write down when I can't breathe and when I can breathe.
And then call me.
And then, so I recognized, I'm like, okay, I'm baking a cake. Wow, I can breathe, because I'm just kind of in the moment. I'm focused on blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I'm doing a puzzle. I can breathe. So it's not that I can't breathe, it's that you're right. It's those moments of silence. And it's those, and I try really hard, I meditate every day.
Wow.
But that's been harder. I've been trying to doing it for years. But I'm not doing a great job at it and that's not working. And so I recognize that it's
what do you mean you're not doing a great job at it?
Listen to her, Lauren. Listen to her. This is what she's telling you.
Well, I'm asking, is it just not helping, or do you think you're doing something wrong and you're meditating?
I am not finding peace as easily and as frequently as I normally would. It's more of a struggle. right now for me to sit and to just sit and to sit with myself sitting. I can feel my heart racing. I can feel the breath catching, it's, the whole point of meditating, right, is to kind of relax into it and to just exist. And I can't wind down. I need to wind down. And I'm not sure how to wind down, knowing that, no, I don't need to work 40 hours a week right this second. I don't need to be in the office every second, but I still need to be engaged a little bit. So, how do you wind?
Sound like someone who you sound like someone who needs to meditate, but you're telling us you are meditating. So that, to your point, to what I understand, it's not working. So maybe you need to double down on that and figure out.
Well, or maybe it is. Maybe I'd be in much worse shape if I wasn't. Woo! I do think one of the things that, now at 46 years old versus at 36 years old, I now am aware, I'm aware that I'm having anxiety as opposed to just having it. I'm aware that that nothing is wrong, but something is wrong. And so I'm trying to fix it. And that's part of where the meditation stuff comes in, is that it's just it helps me practice being aware of it. Now the trick is, okay, I know something's wrong. I know, like you said, I've got the battle fatigue, the adrenaline just stopped. Now, what do I do? Do you know what I mean?
You brought up a very interesting difference between you and me, which is real simple. I'm 18 years older than you, and I can tell you.
Pee standing up.
That too, which is always important. I would say, I realize now part of the reason why I might have been talking just like you when I was 18 years ago. You're still getting your sea legs to the whole business thing, and I realize part of this is you're just growing into your job still, which I've said before. You're still growing into it. You're doing the self-talk of there's nothing really wrong. I've gotten used to doing it to myself. I've had to go, okay, there's nothing wrong here. So my point is, it's going to continue to get easier for you. It is.
Well, and I recognize how much better it is, or how much easier, I should say, it is than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
For sure.
So, and I also recognize, one of my favorite quotes recently is the only way to get through it is to get through it. And so I'm like I'm just cutting myself some slack. I recognize objectively that I'm having either panic attacks or anxiety attacks constantly. I just got to get through it. I've got to try to identify the things that are making it a little better and do more of those and less of the other things. And the big one for me is I recognize that my tolerance is really low right now. I'm annoyed pretty frequently. And so I really have to be very aware of not reacting impulsively when I'm talking to people, especially because Slack and texting, it's so easy to just fire off an impulsive message. So I really am having to consciously stop myself and be like, okay, am I responding emotionally because I'm just exhausted and so I have no patience, or is this the right way to do it? Which then that takes more work too. It's much easier to just fire off and be like, God, you're an idiot. What are you thinking? But instead I got to be like, good question. Have you thought of maybe looking this up yourself? There's this thing called Google that you could type your question into, and it will give you lots of answers.
Stripping out the sarcastic part.
Right.
Yes, that would be a good idea.
I know. Yeah. You know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Part of your issue is simply you're catching up to, I've been in a similar situation where the company was growing faster than my brain, and it took me 20, maybe 30 years to catch up to it. And that's part of your issue, which isn't a bad thing. This is growing pains. You just bought another company. You're growing. You're doing stuff. Every time you get comfortable where you're at, you've grown it a little bit more. So you will catch up.
Laura, tell us about the business. I know you said everything's okay, but what are you concerned about? I'm sure there are things you're concerned about.
Oh, absolutely. Some of us have a tendency to look at all the negative stuff, or I'll call it a critical view. So we're critical thinkers. I asked everybody, there's so many things that need to be fixed with the business that we bought in Texas. There's still so much work to do. But I asked everybody to list out all of the great things that we accomplished this past year. So, we just spent Tuesday going through the 30 different things that we're all most proud of. And how far we've come is pretty remarkable. It's really, really amazing. Okay, great. going to put it up on the wall so that I don't forget and I still have perspective. That said, moving on to being critical, our staff is just, it's not where we want it to be right now. We just did we did end of year bonuses, and not huge, but something. And I asked the managers to go through all 35 people and rank them on a 1 to 5, right? So 5 meaning irreplaceable, we'd be dead without them. 4 is really awesome, but there's still some room for growth. 3 meaning really great, but we'll be okay if they leave. 2, shape up or ship out. And then 1, they need to leave today. Out of 35 people, we had 11 ranked under a 3.
Wow.
And so that really shook me up because, we let 11 people go back in March.
Yep.
Really shook me up. So, which I think was part of the anxiety stuff, is like, we just accomplished all this stuff. We have gone over and, overboard in being generous this year and trying to make everybody's lives better and blah, 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 and trying to make the business better. And to know that there's still a third of the people that aren't fully invested.
Laura, you've been spending a lot of time down there, and I presume you've gotten to know a lot of these people. Were you surprised at some of the people on the list who were 3s or below?
No, not really. I wasn't. I just didn't realize. I guess I thought some of the 2s, the 3s are fine. I mean, we're always going to have 3s. We're going to have 3s, 4s, and 5s. I mean, or at least that's my goal. Jay, you may have, other input.
I say it's out of a 10 scale. I say 7, 8, 9, 10s. I'm not thrilled with the 7s. So I'm not sure 3s are so hot out of 5.
Nah.
That's a 6 out of 10. That's not great. So
okay.
I hope you will aspire to getting it to a little higher than that.
That works. You know what? But, to be fair, we're just going to start with.
No, for sure. You walked into a situation. I'm not arguing. I think as time goes by, you will upgrade those numbers. You did say something, and I'm just laughing. I wish this was TV because it's funny. You said all the things that you're almost proud of. So I'm trying to decide, is it almost like ALL most? Or almost proud of. So is it that you're almost proud of this, or you're all most proud of this?
That we're all most proud of.
Excellent. Because that was funnier the other way, though.
I took it the other way. That is funny.
See?
Oh,
Isn't
you
that
did?
Funny?
Yeah. Oh, no. So it was like 10 of us. It's our weekly meeting, and each person came up with the 3 things that they were most proud of. So together, this is what we were all most proud of.
Every single thing you're saying is showing you're growing as a manager. I would only challenge one word you said to say when you said they're not invested. I don't think that they're not doing a good job, whether they're invested or not. I've had people that were invested that couldn't do a good job. I've had people that weren't invested that did do a good job. It's really about, are they doing the job they're supposed to be doing? So I don't know.
Great point.
That's all. But other than that, really good for you. You're growing into the manager role that you're destined to be in, and you're doing everything right. And I can totally identify with the anxiety of, oh my God, I got 12 things to do. And part of the reason I don't have that anxiety anymore is because I've caught up to that stuff, and you just bought this company. I mean, you're just working on it. So good for you. You're making great progress. And I love the idea you sat down and went through all the good stuff you've done that you are all most proud of. That's a great thing.
It's, to me, it's so important. I have to keep that in perspective. So
sure.
Where we're at, Lauren, is we are, over the next year, our goal is to grow moderately, but to work on efficiency.
Is this just talking about Madeline Tosh in Texas, or?
It is just the Texas business. Yeah. So the Texas business is very controlled growth. While working on efficiency and working on the foundations. So we've got to get like our QC systems and to really prep us for scaling, because I know that the business can be double or triple. The demand is out there. So that part I'm not as worried about. The tendency of this business has been to just throw bodies at stuff. So, when there's an increase. And I would like us to work, I'd like us to work smarter, not harder. And so I think it's going to take us 6 months or a year to kind of change the mentality that we're going to figure out how, and I'd like fewer people that make more. Like I keep telling them, I'm like, we could probably do 30% more business than we're doing now with the same headcount. And that means everybody, if we're all pushing hard, we should all make a little bit more. or a lot more.
I have to tell you a real life story. This isn't some parable. This is a real life story. I was buying glue to mount pictures, and it comes in barrels. So this guy selling it to me, this was 30 years ago. He was in his 50s or 60s. I don't remember. And I said to him, how long have you worked for the company? And he says, I used to own the company. I sold it to someone else. I said, really? How did that go? He goes, well, here's what happened. I had 10 employees, and this guy took over, and he's, a real tough guy, running a business. And he said to me, tell me who your top 5 people are. So I told him, and he fired the other 5 people, and he gets the same production out with the 5 people that I was getting out with 10 people. To your point of, yeah, it happens. And I never forgot that story because it was just so poignant.
So, Laura, along those lines, were there any ones on the list?
No ones. No.
There's never ones on the list because even the worst manager in the world fires the ones.
Exactly.
That's the ones that kill businesses. Are the ones that are out of a scale of 10, it's the 6s because the 6s aren't quite bad enough to fire maybe, and you rationalize it and you say things like, I've said all these things. Oh, we could do worse, or, oh, she's trying really hard. Or, and like at the end of the day, or, oh, they've been here a long time. The customers don't care. They want their stuff when they want it. And they don't want to hear about, oh, sorry, the airplane crashed. The pilot was really trying not to crash it, but unfortunately, he's not a good pilot. I mean, oh, sorry, your mother died in the hospital. I was really trying, but I did forget to give her the medication yesterday. I mean, no one cares. So this is the growing up of being a manager. And then whenever I do the speech, someone goes, oh, you have to get rid of those people that are cancer. No, they're not cancers. Maybe they're just in the wrong job. You have to call them names. For whatever reason, they're invested, they're not invested, they're not working hard. All that matters is, are they doing their job or not? And that's the maturity of a manager when you finally get to that point and you're moving towards that point. You're doing a good job. Excellent.
Well, you're moving towards it. I'm very lucky to be able to jump into this and not have been there for 10 years and have the history and the emotional baggage and the emotional ties. So it's given me a totally different perspective to be able to walk in and look at a lot of this so objectively, which has forced me to be more objective in the business in Reno. It's forced me to take a look back and be like, well,
let me tell you the other part you're missing. You realize you built a relationship with those people to where they gave you the honest truth. Do you know how valuable that is? That obviously you've built a relationship with these key managers that when you ask them, rate these people, that they weren't covering for people and they told you the truth. That's a beautiful thing that is totally a credit to you. If you were a jerk, they wouldn't have told you that stuff. They would have lied. They would have told you everybody.
I appreciate it. And I've told them, I'm so grateful that they were honest with me about it. But yeah.
Were you able to validate what they said to you with what you've seen since you've been there?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I was going to do this last, but it kind of relates to the topic we're on. So we've got a reader question that I want to address, and I'm hoping to do this in most, if not all, of our podcasts going forward. I've asked people to send in questions for you guys, either about their own businesses or about your businesses, and I've been getting some good ones. Hopefully I'll get more. Any of you listening who would like to submit a question, you can send it to me by email, Loren, Loren, at 21hats.com. Or you can simply reply to your 21 Hats morning report. Today's question comes from Hap Cameron. He's owner of Happy Cones, an ice cream shop in Denver. I have a question I'd love your panel to answer. I'm more in Dana's position. I started as an ice cream truck 6 years ago. I opened the shop a year ago, and I'm opening another shop in 3 months. My question is, how do I manage managers effectively? Bear in mind, I'm not a big tech company. I'm an ice cream shop. I'm still trying to figure out whether to pay managers hourly or salary. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Anybody got thoughts for Hap?
Let me chime in before the experts do, because it's something I still struggle with. And I would read the book, The E-Myth Revisited. I think that's very helpful. That's all I've got.
That's good.
You guys, Jay and Dana, you're better managers than I am, but I read.
I don't know if I'm a better manager. I know that over my years of being open, I've figured it out. And then I also, I've been in leadership in other positions. And so I've had the opportunity to manage people before. And my management style is, I give you a long rope And then I see what you do with it. I try to meet with my operations manager regularly to go over the operations. What are the 10 things that are important so I can help, so I can grow the business, do my job. And then these are the things I delegate to her, all of which I've done before. But I chose, with the help of this show, to pay my operations manager a salary. My day-to-day manager in the salon, she is an hourly employee, but I'm rethinking that. And as I expand, I think depending on, what I'm going to have these managers do determines how I will pay them. But you have to, I think part of determining how you're going to manage your managers is based on what you're going to give them to do. There's certain things that I cannot delegate. I can't delegate my presence in an incubator. I have to be there. And so there are things that are in the salon that needs to happen that I need eyes on. And so I delegate that to her and then set up frequent report outs so we can go over the 10 or 12 things that I need to hear back from her. I found that since hiring, I'm not in the weeds with human resources anymore. I'm not into her boyfriend is upset with her. I'm not in that. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in the personal lives of my staff. And I like that, considering my industry and considering what I've learned in my experience. I know I've gotten some backlash from business owners who said, well, gosh, you should know, you're a small company. You should know everybody. Okay, you run an engineering firm, right? It's very different than the culture of a hair salon. So I found that having a manager just allows me to work on the grass tops and the stock of Paralee Boyd, and the managers dig into the grassroots and report out to me on the things they need in order to keep the business open and to grow it.
Jay, any thoughts on compensating and managing managers?
I'll give it to you in 4 steps. Number 1, and most people don't talk about this, the most important part of management isn't management. It's hiring the right person in the first place. So first, I'd put a lot more energy or put good energy into figuring out what kind of person is going to do the best job doing this, put a great ad together, interview thoroughly, check references. And most entrepreneurs are not real good at it, including me. Why? Because we like people, because we like to talk about our companies, and we're in a hurry. That's not a good thing in hiring. Slow down the hiring process and do your best to find someone that has had experience doing something with customers, ask good questions during the interview, like, tell me about a customer experience you've had.
Jay, is that realistic advice for an ice cream shop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why? Why not? Maybe they didn't work in an ice cream shop. No question. But did they have a job before? They've never had a job? Okay. Maybe they're right up. Maybe they just graduated high school, whatever. They've never had a job. Okay. But most people have had a job before. So I would ask them, tell me about dealing with customers. Because at the end of the day, people are not going to be pissed at you because your chocolate ice cream wasn't quite as good as the chocolate. No, they're going to be pissed because your person wasn't nice. Go to Yelp. That's all you have to do. Just look at Yelp and see the reviews. Usually it's about, they've got an attitude in there, or they weren't nice to me, or I hate that. It's usually not about the product. It's usually about the people. So you want to hire a nice person who's going to give a wonderful feeling to your ice cream shop. So you've got to figure out what kind of questions do you ask to tease that out. And the one I would ask is, tell me about a difficult customer situation you've had and how did you handle it? And you can tell by just their body language. Do they sigh? Do they say, oh, wow, I had one, boy, 6 months. And then you find out what they learned from it, and you find out whether they've got an attitude about it, like, well, people are jerks sometimes, versus, listen, I understand my number one job is to make sure people are happy. Even if they're not nice to me, I suck it up. It's not a problem. I don't take it personally. I want to see how they handle that, how they process that. Hiring, number 1. Okay. Number 2, set standards. In an ice cream shop, I'll give you my top 4. Make sure this door opens on time. How many retail stores do you go to that they're not open when they're supposed to be open and you stand out in front waiting? I have a simple solution to that. My employees know our standards are we open 5 minutes early and we don't lock the door till 5 minutes after closing. So there's none of that screaming through the door, pointing at your wristwatch. We're closed. Like, if we close at 6, no one locked the door till 6:05. Easy. versus, getting into the fight with the customer. So setting standards like that, cleanliness, got to be critical. Like you shouldn't walk into your ice cream shop and find dirty napkins laying on the floor. Customer service, if someone's not happy, how do you handle it? Oh, no problem. Let me get you something else. You need to train people on that stuff because some people think they're doing the company a favor if they fight with customers. They think that's their job.
Is
Training.
it fair to ask this manager to write up those standards?
No, not at all. Well, you could ask on the interview to see if they can do it. That certainly would be.
But could you make that part of their job? Could you say, look, part of the reason I'm hiring you is because I want you to create these standards. I want us to agree on them.
No,
I don't
absolutely
have time.
not.
No.
You've just given away. You're no longer the owner. Now it's like your employee is decide who your store is. No, I don't mind the asking. What do you think? If I had Mary, what do you think the four most important things to being a manager in the store? And see if she can come up with it. This ain't brain surgery. They should come up with customer service, cleanliness, making sure that we got the place staffed properly for the right time. They should be able to come up with this if you wanted to be a manager. So we get through hiring.
Wait, let me interrupt you, Jay, for a second. I want to tell you about a situation that I'm familiar with that I think actually resonates with some of what you're discussing. I'm curious what your reaction to it will be. A couple of years ago, when I was still at Forbes and Bo Burlingham and I were picking the annual Forbes Small Giants list, we put an ice cream chain on the list. It's called Amy's Ice Cream. It's based in Austin, Texas. And they do a couple of things there that I'd never heard before. One of them is they have no applications for jobs. If somebody comes in and says they want to work there, they hand them a white paper bag, the kind of bag that they put ice cream containers in for customers, and say, here, do something with this. The thinking on that is that they don't really care what someone does. They care that someone takes the time to actually try to do something. And they feel that sorts out the people who are just looking for a job from the people who really want to work at Amy's. So that's one thing they do that they claim has been really effective for them. The other thing is they hire a lot of college graduates or even college students to work and even to manage the stores, but they rotate everybody through every position in the store. So nobody is assigned one role. They get to do everything. And the goal there is to give everybody a great work experience. They know they're going to go on and do other things and talk to their friends, and they want them to tell their friends that was the best college, graduate job or right out of college job anybody could have. What do you think of that, Jay?
I love the second part. Good karma. Like, sure, you got young people, give them a nice experience. I think that's great. People should leave your company and feel good that they learned something or had a good experience there. The bag thing, I don't know if it works for them. I can't argue if it works for them. I don't know that it makes sense to me, but if it works for them, it works for them. I don't know what to think of that. It seems like you're supposed to do something with the bag.
You're supposed to draw something, fill something out.
I thought where you were going with that was, here's a paper bag and a pencil. I want you to write down the 5 things that you think are critical to running a great ice cream place.
You can do that.
Okay.
You could I love the bag idea.
Yeah, sure. No, brilliant. I don't mind the difference of, sure. The point is, the hiring, what I figured out, and I'm not that smart, it took me 20 years. What I figured out is great companies have great hiring processes, period. It's not an accident. Great companies don't accidentally end up with great employees. They figured it out because of the reality is, out of 10 people coming in for a job, only one of them is going to be a great employee for you. And whenever
how do you feel about hiring a recruiter? Like, we need to, Doug is ready to look for another software engineer, and we have hired and we've tried multiple times. We've hired 4 or 5 people that haven't worked out. So we obviously aren't doing a good job at hiring. Is it time for us to get a recruiter?
Well, a
high-level skilled job? As the
person said, they're not a high-tech business. Maybe in your business, maybe you have to do that because there's such a demand. I've used a recruiter, but I'm not in a high-tech business. I've used a recruiter 3 or 4 times for management positions, and every one of them ended up being extremely disappointing. That's been my experience, but I'm not hiring high tech. My first question would be, show me the ad. I want to see, when you said you've tried, okay, but did you put a great ad together that gives them a reason why they should work for you? If you feel like you've done a great ad and you've done the best, Okay, and maybe in that industry, you have to use a recruiter. So if you get the hiring thing down, the rest gets much easier. So one, go through a process and say to yourself, I'm going to take a lot of time and do this right. Set standards, again, cleanliness, on time, customer service, make sure everyone understands. 3, you're a manager. You might have to tell them a couple of times. You got to monitor it and make sure things are happening correctly. And included in that, included with the coaching, management, positive reinforcement, all that good stuff, this is where the manager has to come out, and there will become a point that you need to have the skill set of knowing when this ain't working, and then get rid of them, because that's where people make the mistake. They rationalize, they put up with, and anytime you ever hear anyone complaining about their employees, it's a bad manager. You shouldn't be complaining about your employees. You should have wonderful employees. That's your job. Find them, keep them. So my contention is hire the right people, train them, coach them, manage them, put standards together. Everything falls in place. As far as hourly versus salary, I would say unless they really want a salary, I think it's always safer to start on hourly. That way, if they're working extra, they're getting paid. And there's no downside to that. I have had the opposite, where you put them on salary and then they get home and they're whoever, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, mother. What are you working extra time? You're not getting paid for that. You're working for free. Like, some people don't get the salary thing. So I wouldn't be so quick to throw everybody on salary.
Dana, you just told us you were rethinking that for your manager and thinking about moving towards salary. What are your thoughts?
I'm noticing how many hours she's working. She's doing more for a man than, your usual manager. She's more than just an on-site manager.
What kind of money is she making
now, or is she salary now?
She's hourly now. Just we kind of talked about making it just easier to have your admin team on salary. And it just, we don't have to watch hours. We don't have to, not include her on
What kind of money are we talking about? What kind of money are we talking about?
Like $17 an hour.
You know what we did is when we've had that situation and it becomes an administrative burden to clock in and clock out, we took their hourly wage, and I don't know if this is the right thing to do. It's just what we've done. Especially for people who didn't really understand the salary and whose wives and moms and whoever would complain about you're working more and not getting paid for it. We said, look, we're going to take your hourly rate. We're going to salary-atize it, so multiply it times 2080. And then we're going to add 5%. And basically what that's doing is we are guaranteeing you 2.5 hours of overtime every week. So we're just going to prepay you, we're just going to assume that you're going to work blah, blah, blah overtime. Plus you get an extra week of vacation. Plus you get, extra holidays. Plus you get a couple, we made sure that in a salaried position, there are some extra benefits that you don't get if you're hourly. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of how we explained it to people.
Why do you guys know that their families have an issue with them working salary?
Because that's what comes up. Well, hey, where are we going Saturday? Oh, I can't. I got to go to work Saturday. Well, are you getting paid? No.
Do they come to you and say, that's what I'm saying, like?
Oh, they usually complain to somebody else. Everything always simmers up to the top. If they don't get the salary thing, my argument is they don't need to get it. Just pay them on the clock. And I don't disagree with what you're saying, Laura, with the 5%. The problem is the way you stated it, they're getting paid 2.5. They're getting paid for 2.5 hours of overtime. Not really, because they get paid time and a half for overtime. So I tweaked that number a little bit because they're paying. Trust me, they're aware of the fact they get time and a half when they work overtime. So, but I don't think that's a bad philosophy. And certainly there are some people that it's a great thing to put them on salary. They feel like they're more part of the management team and they don't have to punch in and out. It's a great thing, except this is like, do you go on the tilt-a-whirl and the carnival things, that thing, the car that spins around? There's people that get off the tilt-a-whirl and get back in line and can't wait to do it again. And there's people that want to throw up and say, I'm never going on there again. That's how salary it is. There's some people, it's great, love it. And there's people that hate it. So you got to figure out which is which, because if you put someone on salary that really's got an hourly mentality, it's going to cause you problems.
All right, we're almost out of time. I got to ask one more question. I want to squeeze this in quickly because it's about me. This question relates directly to what I'm doing. As you know, I'm trying my best to turn 21 Hats into a real business. I've got a daily email newsletter and a weekly podcast that you're participating in right now, but I don't have any revenue, and I'm hoping to address that situation in the next month or so, which leads me to this question. When you guys were getting started, when did you know you had a real business? Laura, do you remember?
It's different when you have a physical store and you like open it up and people, for me, I guess it was the first time Susan Conrad was my very first customer, and she walked in and she spent $88. I still remember the credit card that she used. And I was just like, holy shit. And I was just like, are you sure? Are you sure? Is that okay? Like, that seems like a lot for a little baby sweater. Is it going to be all right? So yeah, that was the first transaction.
I thought somebody for sure you were going to say you still don't feel like you have a real business. I was waiting for you to say that.
She knows she has a business. She's got two.
Yeah.
No, I don't feel like I have a grown-up business. I don't feel like we've got our shit together, but I do. I know Jay. Well, I'm always on the way. It's a freaking journey.
Dana, how about you?
When we had volume, I remember it. It was December 16th, 2012. And I looked around and all the chairs were full. 2 of the sinks were full. And there was a lady waiting. And then at the end of that day, when I looked at our receipts, I don't even remember how much we made that day. But the fact that I realized the vision, I got everybody in and out in under a certain time, and they were all walking in and they were happy. I said, wow, I've got something here. It's closing and we're leaving. And we've seen over 30 people today. Wow. And then the next time is about shortly after that, when I pulled up to open the salon at 9 and it was 8:15 and there was a line outside already. I said, ooh, here we go.
That's great. Jay, do you remember?
I don't remember a specific moment, but in 1979, for those of you that were alive.
Well, that's because it was like half a century ago.
Well, it was half a century.
Do you remember
It almost
anything?
was. Yes, it was. Yeah. When I pulled up in my horse and wagon.
Yeah. And everything was in black and white.
Yeah. And in 1979, I made $20-some thousand a year, which was the same amount of money that all the guys that took the accounting jobs were making. So I felt pretty good, like, wow, I'm framing pictures and I made as much money as someone that took a job doing accounting. So
I was eating my Cheerios in my kindergarten class right then.
Yeah. But I will tell you, getting bigger, there is one moment I remember that really made me feel like, wow, I got like a decent sized business. I bought a forklift. That was a big deal. I own a forklift. You go to companies with forklifts, they just were there when you showed up there, but like, I bought a forklift. That was a huge thing. Like,
all right. So you've told me what I needed to hear. I've got to end this podcast so I can go buy a forklift.
Yes, that's what you need, a forklift. Yeah, for all the heavy lifting you do every day.
My thanks to Jay Goltz, Dana White, and Laura Zander. As always, guys, thanks so much for sharing. Thanks for listening, everybody. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Remember, we started the 21 Hats podcast to help business owners feel a little less isolated, to let them know they aren't the only ones fighting these battles. If you got something out of this conversation, please help us reach more people. Tell a friend, subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at 21_hats. And let me know if you have a question or a comment or a topic you'd like us to cover. My email address is lfeldman@21hats.com. See you next time.